After death, in a place called Junction, a man waits for his wife to die so they can choose an eternity where they will live forever. When his wife dies and arrives at the junction, he explains the situation and the options to her. While they are talking, she is shocked to see her ex-husband there, who has been waiting for her for the last 67 years with hope. This all started when an elderly couple, Larry and Joan, were on their way to a party at their son's house, arguing about every topic that comes to their minds. They're so distracted that they almost crash into another car. When they make it to their son's house, Larry covers the bandage on Joan's arm with a sleeve and reminds her that she needs to tell the family about her cancer. Joan asks for one more day since she doesn't want to ruin their grandchild's gender reveal party. The family receives the couple with a warm welcome and teases them for their 65 years of marriage. They also tell Joan that they found a box of her old pictures in the basement. One of the photos is of Joan's wedding to her first husband, Luke, who died during the war. Meanwhile, Larry is having some pretzels when suddenly he starts choking. He struggles to breathe as he collapses on the floor. Seconds later, Larry is shocked to wake up in a train with pink confetti falling on his head. A kid in an oversized suit says Larry wasn't expecting it before walking away. When the train stops at the station, Larry notices that many passengers are wearing hospital gowns. He follows the passengers until he makes it to a crowded area known as the junction, where lots of people tell him things that he doesn't understand. Larry tells the receptionist that he's been abducted, but she assures him he wasn't and he has to wait until his AC comes for him. Some hours later, most of the crowd is gone and Larry is napping on the chairs. He's awakened by Anna, who introduces herself as his AC. This stands for Afterlife Coordinator, which means Larry has died. Larry starts to deny it, but at the same time, he sees the confetti and realizes his grandkid is a girl. Anna makes Larry look at himself in the mirror and he finally notices he's young again, proving her story. She explains that when people reach the junction, their forms revert to their happiest selves. As Anna guides him through the building, Larry keeps insisting that he must go back to his wife, so Anna slaps him to make him stop whining. She also clarifies that this isn't paradise. It's a brief transition between life and eternity. At that moment, they hear an alarm and Larry sees a man being tackled by security. Anna warns him to never cross any red doors. Afterward, Anna takes Larry to his temporary room and leaves him brochures promoting eternities as presented by different religions. He must stay there until he chooses the right eternity for himself. After a quick clothes change, Larry tries to watch TV, but all the channels are ads for different kinds of eternities. Then, Larry explores the junction only to find dozens of booths promoting even more eternities. Eventually, he finds a bar and as soon as he takes a seat, a beautiful woman sits next to him. He tries to explain he's married, yet the woman keeps flirting to promote a naughty eternity. Thankfully, bartender Luke reminds her that advertising is forbidden in the bar, so she leaves. Larry wonders if the bartender is an angel, but Luke clarifies he's just a soul that got a job to stay in the junction. Since Larry is still confused, Luke shares the rules. There's no switching eternities after he's chosen, and there's no visiting other eternities either. If he breaks a rule, overstays his welcome, or tries to switch eternities, they'll put him in the void. It's a place with nothing but blackness for all eternity. Larry shares that his wife has cancer and he promised to take care of her, but now he feels guilty for abandoning her, so he asks for another drink. The next morning, Anna wakes Larry up by getting on his bed. While complaining about his hangover, he asks why there are souls with jobs in the junction. Anna explains that some people haven't accepted death while others are waiting for their loved ones. The worst ones are the ones that can't choose. Larry wants to know if Joan will die soon, but they can't obtain that information. Since he decides to wait for her, Anna tells him he can get a job as a janitor after the provided 7 days, but he'll also have to move to the basement. Some days pass and there's no sign of Joan. Anna tells Larry that this could take several months. So, Larry decides he'll prepare an eternity so Joan will feel at home when she arrives. That night, he writes a letter to his wife explaining everything. At the same time, the cancer finally kills Joan and she wakes up on the train. The next morning, Anna is taking Larry to his eternity. He asks her to give his letter to Joan, but she explains it's against the rules and hugs him goodbye. Larry starts making his way to the station while Joan leaves the train. On the escalator, Larry is shocked to see his wife, but she doesn't notice him. A desperate Larry quickly changes lanes and rushes back to the junction where Joan is seeing her young face in a mirror. The couple reunites with a warm hug. Joan already figured out that she's dead and scolds Larry for dying in such a stupid way. The moment is interrupted by Ryan, Joan's afterlife coordinator. He drags her away from Larry and brings her to her first husband, Luke, who has been waiting for her for 67 years. They share a very sweet and emotional reunion. However, Larry interrupts them because he wants to take Joan away to his eternity. Joan starts having a panic attack when she realizes she must choose a husband to spend eternity with. So, Ryan takes her to her room. After Joan changes into a nice dress, Ryan tries to guide her through her options. At that moment, Luke comes to see her and a scared Joan slams the door in his face. Ryan thinks Luke is the better option because he was loyal for over 50 years. Meanwhile, Larry is ranting to Anna, who reveals she used to have a relationship with Ryan. She thinks Luke is extremely handsome. So, Larry points out that he's the one who gave Joan 65 years of marriage and children. Anna calls it emotional blackmail. Back to Joan. She and Luke go on a walk around the junction and behave rather awkwardly. Suddenly, two guards run nearby to catch a guy who tries to escape his eternity. One of the guards stops to say hi to Luke and immediately recognizes Joan. It seems Luke has been talking about her a lot. After they're gone, Luke explains the rules and tells Joan that he loves her. He says he thought about her every single day and shares lots of sweet words before trying to kiss her, but Joan pulls away because she feels sick. She tells Luke that she needs time to think and runs away. Minutes later, Larry bursts into Joan's room and brings her lots of options for their eternity. Joan freaks out and yells at him, reminding him that she needs time. She also reveals that after Larry's death, her best friend Karen died, too, which makes Larry happy because he hated her. He remembers that squatting always helped her calm down and convinces her to do it. As an old lady, Joan couldn't squat anymore, so it makes her happy to be able to do it again. Then, Larry eats some pretzels and almost chokes again, which makes Joan freak out. She explains she needs to clear her head, so Larry apologizes for being insensitive and says they can talk in the morning. When he tries to get comfortable in her bed, Joan kicks him out. Larry tries to return to his room. However, his 7 days are over, so he has to move to the basement. On the way, Larry sees a sign promoting a show by dead artist Dean Martin. Joan loves that singer, so Larry asks Anna to arrange a show. He's also disappointed to discover his new room is tiny. The next morning, Larry takes Joan to the waiting area where Anna has brought a Dean Martin impersonator to sing while she plays the piano. However, the guy starts acting strange and trips on the stairs. Larry goes to Anna to complain, and the guy uses the chance to hit on Joan. Luke quickly comes to drag him back and punch him. Then, with the help of Ryan, Luke tries to give Joan flowers, but Larry immediately interrupts him to complain more. The men start arguing and Joan snaps, yelling to make them stop. Afterward, she brings Anna and Ryan to her room and yells at them for a while before asking them to find a solution. The coordinators make a very long phone call to get an exception to the rule. Moments later, the coordinators announce that because of the unique circumstances, they've acquired special visas. Joan will be allowed 2 visits to an eternity, one with each husband. After spending time with them, she'll make her decision. Larry flips a coin and Luke wins to go first. During the train ride, Luke and Joan remember the old times, but things are still very awkward. They arrive at a beautiful mountain eternity. As they wander around, they have lots of fun together. In the evening, they have dinner, and Joan keeps talking about her children and grandchildren, which makes Luke uncomfortable. Afterward, Luke takes Joan to the archives, where every soul can revisit all the memories from their living years. They watch their first date, first kiss, and wedding day. Joan tells Luke how much she missed him, and they kiss. However, the memories keep playing, and Luke has to watch how Larry proposed to Joan. He stomps out in a huff, saying Larry took advantage of a grieving woman. Meanwhile, Larry finds Joan's best friend, Karen, who looks rather old. Karen explains her happiest days came after her husband died because she could finally come out of the closet. She assures Larry that he made Joan very happy. Afterward, Larry goes to Luke's room to find dirt on him. At that moment, Luke comes back and they get in a really pathetic fight. In the struggle, Larry's letter falls from his pocket. Luke points out that Larry proposed at the dock that he and Joan considered their special place. The next day, Larry takes Joan to a beach eternity. They chat for a while and almost kiss, but an argument ensues when Joan feels Larry is manipulating her. Larry swears he would have waited for her as long as Luke did. In the junction, Luke finds Larry's letter and reads it. When Joan and Larry return, Luke shows up to tell Joan that Larry broke into his room and gives her the letter. Now Joan knows that Larry almost left and only stayed because he saw her. Another argument begins where Joan calls Larry selfish. Larry admits he always felt like a consolation prize compared to the ghost of Luke. The men want a decision now, but Joan needs more time. Karen visits Joan and reminds her that being dead means she has no obligations to anyone and can start with a clean slate. At the bar, Larry and Luke are drinking too much, which helps them bond. They even say that Joan doesn't deserve them. The next morning, Joan announces she chooses neither of them and leaves with tears in her eyes to spend eternity with Karen. Larry tells Luke he proposed on the dock because Luke was the ghost he couldn't compete with. Luke admits he's jealous of the life Larry built. They realize their forms represent when they were happiest. Luke looks like the day they discussed starting a family, while Larry looks like the time Joan was pregnant with their second child. Suddenly, Larry realizes something and rushes to the station. He finds Joan and points out that her hair is long, but she always wore it short during their marriage. This means she was happiest with Luke, so he insists she go with him. They cry as they share a last hug. Sometime later, Luke and Joan are in the mountain eternity, but Joan starts feeling doubts. Every night, she visits the archives to watch her memories with Larry. Joan finally breaks down and tells Luke she made a mistake. She explains that young, foolish love wasn't enough. Love should include the bad moments, too. She says Luke is in love with the Joan from 67 years ago, but she's changed. Luke agrees to help her escape. He creates a distraction at the archives, and Joan sneaks through a red door. She runs through a surreal corridor of her memories memories, evading guards, until she manages to return to the junction. She finds Larry working as a bartender. They share a drink, and Joan asks Larry to come with her, even though she's a fugitive. Larry agrees. Moments later, the couple is in an eternity that copies the neighborhood they lived in during their entire married life.